as you're about to be a crusader for whatever cause it is, just stop and reflect and ask yourself, is this actually going to help my career or is it going to hurt my career? This is also going to help you grow and realizing that you can't necessarily fight for every single thing that you see wrong within an organization.
Hannah Hotline, how can I redirect your call? Oh, hello. Hi, I have a really big problem at
Dear
work.
Hannah Hotline.
I don't really like my boss. I'm really attracted to the guy I work with, but
I just want to say no, but I say
it's
yes.
my self-esteem, you know? Maybe it's burnout. This is the operator putting you through now.
Hey, hotties, welcome back to another episode of Hannah Hotline. And today we have another juicy listener email. And as usual, if you want to be featured on Hannah Hotline, you can submit your emails to hello@hannahkissel.com with your career dilemma, and I will answer them. Okay, here we go. So, dear Hannah, I'm someone who cannot let injustice slide. I've spent years building my career, but I keep finding myself in the same exhausting loop. I see something unfair, I call it out, and somehow I end up looking like the asshole. Here's a recent example. I started a new role, and within weeks, I noticed things weren't being run honestly. Processes were being misrepresented to the CEO, and numbers weren't adding up. I flagged it because that's what you're supposed to do. I thought I was being a good operator. What happened? I got fired. Ouch. Okay. The real issue was that my corrections were inconvenient for someone with more power. When I tried to have a real conversation about it, I was told I was imagining things. Honesty and integrity are my core values, but when those values are violated, something in me just can't keep quiet. How do I keep to my values without suffering for it? Righteous and running on empty. Okay. Well, first of all, I'm so sorry that this happened to you because that is, quite a horrific ordeal as well, to flag something and to think that you got fired for it and to lose your income streams and to lose, your current career. So I'm sorry that this happened to you, but there's a lot in this that we can go through. So years back, I was mentoring someone and they found something pretty sketchy going on within the organization. And it was admittedly sketchy. And they brought it to me. They brought it to my boss at the time. And I was, mentoring them. So I was quite a bit more senior than them. And I think they might have flagged it with HR. And, rightly so. But then this person just couldn't let it go. Couldn't let it go, kept bringing it up. And finally, I had to say to them, I understand what you found is actually shady. You're right. It's not fair, but it's actually going to harm your career in the long term if you keep bringing this up. You flagged it to the appropriate people. You can, you've done what you need to do, but sometimes there are just things where you got to let it go. I have coached a lot of people with very strong justice parts, with very high integrity, high values. And the interesting thing is, and I have a pretty large sample size for this, the interesting thing about this is that every single one of those people has been fired. And that tends to be a pattern because sometimes when we have such a strong sense of justice and integrity and what's right, you may be willing to really fight for that at all costs, including the cost of your own career. And that's not to say don't fight for what's right. Of course, we need people with strong moral values. And this is not to say don't have strong moral values. Of course, that's not. However, if you are continuously getting in this situation where it's like putting on performance management plans and your work is pretty exceptional, you feel like you're really good at what you do, but somehow this is just the same cycle where you fight for something, but then you end up like you've done something wrong, or that's how it ends up looking, then that means that there are a few things that are usually going on. So one of them is, let's look at how you're presenting information. So it could be that you see something, you flag what's wrong, but I'm wondering how it is being spoken about. Is it saying this person has done this person is wrong, this person, is doing this, and this? Versus the way that I would do this is take a really objective stance. Let's say you do find something. You find something that's in your next role. You find something that's being misrepresented. You find something that's shady in some way. A way to do this without kind of getting anyone offside is by simply presenting the data and also documenting everything, every single thing that you speak about, especially if there's anything untoward going on, document it. But you could just say, here's what I've noticed. Here's what I found. Here are the risks that I think could happen because of this information. What would you like me to do about it? That person could say, thank you for flagging. Okay, here's what we need to do. We need to change the process. Or that person could say, leave it with me. This stakeholder owns this project. I'm going to go talk to this stakeholder about it. Instead of going in, trying to save the day, calling things out, saying that things are wrong, simply present it with an objective view and say, okay, here are the facts. Let's talk about what to do. So that's kind of the first thing, which is like how you are presenting it. The next thing is like really understanding where you are on your level of influence. So are you a decision maker? If you are an individual contributor or even a middle manager, you likely don't have that much power. And maybe you do have influence, maybe you don't, but just being self-aware enough to realize I actually don't have that level of influence here. I probably shouldn't necessarily be overstepping. I can again present the facts, present the data, and let the decision maker or whoever does have more a sphere of influence do what they want with that information. Also, sometimes when you have like a really strong sense of justice or your core value is integrity, a lot of energy can be poured outward where you are trying to fix things, you're trying to fight for things, you're trying to do what's right. And I actually want you to just redirect your attention inward and redirect your attention to you and your career. And asking yourself, as you're about to be a crusader for whatever cause it is, just stop and reflect and ask yourself, is this actually going to help my career or is it going to hurt my career? And some people would say, okay, I'm going to be more selfish, but this actually isn't selfishness. It's more self-preservation and it's more looking after what are your best interests, but also how, this is also going to help you grow and realizing that you can't necessarily fight for every single thing that you see wrong within an organization. Which brings me to my next point, which is that, and this is a hard truth, some people just actually aren't really meant to be in corporate organizations. And being a quote unquote good corporate is a skill set. Understanding office politics, understanding influence, understanding persuasion, that is all a skill set. So it comes really innately to some people. You'll know the guy or girl, woman, who keeps getting promoted and promoted and promoted, and they suck at their job. They don't have a lot of talent. They're highly mediocre. I'm sure everyone listening to this can think of 5 people in the organization, but they know how to maneuver. They know who has influence. They know who to touch upon. They know whose side to get on. And that is a skill that not everyone has. This is not necessarily saying that that is a great skill to have. You can decide if that's a skill that you want to develop. That is a skill of influence and persuasion, and also understanding and having self-awareness of how you contribute to it, and understanding how to read a room, understanding different power dynamics, both explicit and implicit. But you may not be that type of person, and that's okay. And I've actually worked with people who have exited the corporate life to start their own businesses, and it's been such a better fit for them. And I've even said, you have such amazing talent, you have so much to give, and you're actually being stifled in an organization. So really look at, is this the best fit for you? And it might be, or it might not be. So thank you so much for writing in. Really interesting dilemma. I'd love to hear back from you. And if you want to get featured on Hannah Hotline, either on the podcast or on Daily Telegraph, you can email me at hello@hannahkissel.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in 2 weeks.
Hannah Hotline. Email her and you'll be fine. When your brain goes bing, bang, bonka, bing, boom. Email Hannah Hotline. Email Hannah Hotline.
Hannah Hotline is sponsored by Dominic Jingles, where quirky, clever and corporate branding is reimagined. DM Dominique on Instagram at Dominique Jingles or email dominiqueenglish04@gmail.com.